I'm Jack Thompson, a laborer working in a modest factory. Lacking formal qualifications, I jumped straight into the workforce after high school. One day, I encountered a disheveled girl in a school uniform, clearly not from around here. Despite the chilly weather, she wasn't wearing a coat. Her knees were scraped, and her clothes were messy. What could be going on with her? My curiosity piqued. I paused to observe her. Why is she sitting here instead of heading home? Perhaps she's feeling unwell. She kept rubbing her legs and hands to fend off the cold, occasionally blowing on her hands to warm them. Leaving her alone might not be safe, so I decided to take action. I went into a nearby cafe, bought some hot drinks and donuts, and approached her. As I got closer, the girl seemed startled, as if frightened. "Hey, good evening." "Don't worry, I'm not going to hurt you. You look cold and I thought you might need this." I handed her a hot lemon tea I had just bought. She hesitated for a moment before taking it and pressing it to her cheek for warmth. "Are you hungry? Being cold is worse when you're hungry. Would you like this donut?" Not sure what teenagers prefer, I had grabbed a random donut. I wasn't sure if she'd accept it, but to my relief, she quietly said, "Thank you," and took it. "Why aren't you heading home?" She shook her head but stayed silent. Could she have run away from home? I considered the possibility, but not wanting to pry, I hesitated. Then, a gust of wind lifted her skirt, revealing legs covered in painful-looking cuts. "Your legs?" I couldn't help but exclaim. She quickly pulled her skirt down, but I had already seen the injuries. "Did someone hurt you? Were you attacked?" She tensed up, clearly unwilling to speak. "All right, I'm sorry. It's okay if you don't want to talk about it. But staying here isn't safe. Something bad could happen. Why don't you go home?" She spoke softly. "No, I was planning to go to my dad's place, but it's quite far." Her dad's place? So she's living with her mom right now? I wasn't sure what her situation was, but it didn't seem simple. "Why don't you call your dad? Maybe he can come to get you." "I don't have his number. I don't even have a phone." I was surprised. It's rare to find a teenager without a phone these days. "Do you know where he lives? Do you have an address?" She nodded and handed me a small piece of paper. The paper had an address I didn't recognize. "Is this where you can find him?" She nodded. "It looks like it's a bit of a distance, and it's getting late." I pulled out my smartphone and searched for the address. It turned out to be the location of Blake Group, a construction company, I assumed. I jotted down the phone number and handed it to her. "Here's the number I found associated with that address. You should try calling it tomorrow. It might help you get in touch with your dad. Since it's Blake Group, he could be working there. I hope you'll be able to find him." She then gave me a bright smile. "All right, you should find a place to stay tonight. I'll book a room for you. Can you manage on your own?" I don't have any money. I had only a little cash left, just a $100 bill in my wallet. That should be enough for a night, I thought. "Don't worry," I reassured her. "I can cover the cost for one night. After a warm bath and a restful sleep, you should call your dad. But I can't repay you. Don't worry about it. Just focus on finding your dad." I booked a room for her at a nearby hotel where breakfast was included for $100. I spoke to the staff, paid for the room, and requested they let her make a call in the morning. We then parted ways. I felt good about helping her, even though my wallet was now empty. A few days later, I was summoned by the factory manager, Mr. Smith. "You wanted to see me?" This was the first time since starting at the factory that I had been called to the manager's office. I entered nervously, only to find him dressed in an expensive suit, a surprising sight for the manager of such a modest factory. It was odd to see him out of work clothes. I found it strange. "It's Jack, right?" "Yes, sir, it's Jack Thompson." "Right, you don't have to come here anymore." "I'm sorry, what do you mean?" "It means you're fired." I didn't know what to say to the sudden dismissal. "So pack your things and leave." "Excuse me, please tell me why." Did I make a mistake that warrants being fired? I can't recall doing anything wrong. "We don't need a troublemaker like you in our company." It doesn't make sense. What makes me a troublemaker? "You have connections with the Mafia, don't you?" "What? No way, that's not true." "Man, it's unbelievable. I gave you a job even though you only graduated from high school, and now you're involved with the Mafia." I couldn't believe it. That must be some mistake. I've never been involved with the Mafia, nor have they ever bothered me. You can say whatever you want, right? But the fact is, the Mafia is looking into you. As a company, we can't employ someone like that. We never wanted to hire a high school graduated in the first place. The previous boss used to say nice things like, if someone is motivated, that's enough, even if they're just a high school graduate. Really, he caused me a lot of trouble. Please, I really have nothing to do with the Mafia. If I lose this job, how am I supposed to survive? I don't care if you end up dead on the street, that's none of my business. Why don't you ask the Mafia for help? I'm sure they'll help you out. I really have nothing to do with the Mafia. It must be some mistake. Please don't fire me. No, the decision is final. We don't need antisocial elements in a small factory like ours. Next time you apply for a job, don't lie about stuff like this. I'm not lying. I've never been involved with such people. So were you hanging out with delinquents in high school? Are those the kind of people looking for you? That's not possible. Please, Mr. Smith, I'm telling you the truth. Enough, just leave. I've told the office to pay you for today. Don't ever show your face at our company again. I kept repeating, there must be some mistake. But he wouldn't listen at all, looking at me as if I were trash. Then he said, with pointing at the door, is that all you've got work to do? It's all over. Realizing it was the end, I received a thin envelope in the office. That was my last paycheck from the company. Was the 15 years I worked so hard for really so meaningless to be ended with just this thin envelope? When I said goodbye to my colleagues, they said, "Why so suddenly? That's ridiculous," expressing their regret over my departure. But no matter how much my colleagues regretted it, there was no changing the manager's mind, nor was there anyone willing to convey those feelings to him. They all knew that if they did something like that, they would be the next ones to be cut off. Leaving those colleagues with a take care, I exited the gates of the company I had been going through for 15 years. What am I supposed to do now? Being fired so suddenly? All I have is this thin envelope. I just hope I can find another job before it runs out. With those thoughts, I could only see the ground beneath my feet. Then, in my downward gaze, I spotted a black tire coming to a stop. Why would a car stop here? Curious, I looked up. It was a black luxury car. It's in the way. Naturally, I thought so. Must be some big shot. Here for the factory. Then he should just hurry up and get inside the factory grounds. Then, the driver with gloved hands came out of the driver's seat and respectfully opened the rear door. A man in an expensive suit and a girl came out. The man asked the girl, "Is this the guy?" The girl nodded in confirmation. Seeing that nod, I exclaimed, "Oh, you're the girl from that time. So you did meet your dad, right? That's great. I'm really glad you were able to meet him safely." Forgetting my recent sorrows, I spoke to her. She smiled brightly and hugged me. "Thanks to you, my daughter could safely come to me." "Thank you. You're her dad. That's great. I was worried about her, but had no way to contact you after that. By the way, you're leaving the company so early. Got somewhere to be?" "Oh yeah, something like that." I forced a dry laugh. There was no way I could tell someone I just met that I had just been fired. Especially not to someone who's probably a company president. I recognize him. So due to riding in such a fancy car and dressed so well, I shouldn't even be speaking to someone like him. "If you're not in a hurry, I'd like to show my gratitude. It's almost lunchtime. How about a meal?" "No, thank you. That's too much. I couldn't possibly accept your gratitude for something I should naturally do. Come on, don't be like that. Of course, if you have other plans, I won't insist. But if you're free, could you join me? I wouldn't feel right letting you go without properly thanking you. After all, you saved my daughter, and a simple thanks just doesn't cut it." I initially refused because there was really nowhere a recently fired guy like me had to be. However, in such a downtrodden state, looking for another job wasn't likely to go well. Thinking that, I said, "If you insist, then I'll accept your kind offer," and decided to go along. I got into the car and was taken to a high-end restaurant. Excuse me, I'm dressed like this. I was wearing work clothes, not exactly the attire for a high-end restaurant. I had thought we'd be going to something like a diner at most, so I was surprised. But the man laughed heartily and said, "Don't worry about it. Clothes don't eat the meal." He then pushed me forward. He must be a regular, as the hostess didn't make a fuss and even smiled me. The atmosphere in that private room was extremely luxurious and extraordinary. I thought on the spot, like, wow, looks very gorgeous. A bit uncomfortable though. It was tough being in such a prestigious place for me as a high school graduated. Yet, as the drink started flowing, things began to feel different. The smile of the girl and the conversation between father and daughter. Just that was enough to warm my heart, not to mention the fine drinks and luxurious food. At what I thought could be the first and last feast of my life, I was thoroughly enjoying every bite. After a while, the man revealed his identity. I should have introduced myself at the beginning, but that's just who I am. He said, handing me a business card that read, Boss of Blake Family. Oh my God. Mafia? Oh, excuse me. No problem, you're right. But you know, a mafia is also a parent. Thanks to you, I could reunite with my daughter. I'm grateful. Oh yes, my pleasure. By the way, may I ask? I've been wondering why she was there that day. That's because actually her mother and I divorced years ago. She remarried not long after. Her new husband seemed to be the vice president of a small factory. But after she passed away, his new wife moved in. At the same time, the president of the factory, who'd been kind to my daughter, also passed away. Then, the vice president succeeded to the president's post. But from then on, my daughter was treated like a nuisance. Could it be that's why her legs were bruised? Yeah, that's right. She was hurt, where it wouldn't show. Especially her back, it was terrible. Can't imagine how much it hurt. Her mother gave her an amulet before she died, told her if she ever went to the other side to open it and get help. That was the note? Yeah, not writing down a phone number was a bit of an oversight. She was just desperately trying to find me. But as much as she's a high school student, it was quite a distance to walk. By the time he found her, her wallet was empty. She might have ended up frozen to death if it continued like that. That was the situation. I thought there must be some circumstances. As for her mother's new husband, I just can't forgive him. He made her go through so much. I swore to get revenge. Oh, it doesn't sound good for a mafia to say such things, does it? I understand how you feel. Thanks. What about you? Leaving work at such an hour. Something must have happened, right? It's odd saying this to someone I just met, especially a boss. But I was actually fired just now. Fired? Why? That's because I was wrongfully accused of having connections with antisocial forces. I have no idea how it came to that. Just this morning, out of the blue, I was told and then fired. Huh? Wait a minute. Hey, the boss called over an executive standing by. After a whispered exchange, he exclaimed, "Idiots," and turned to me. "I'm terribly sorry. That was my fellow's fault. What do you mean? I wanted to thank you so much that I had my guys check up on you. They found out where you worked, but wanted to make sure you were really there. Seems like they mentioned our organization's name over the phone. That's probably what got back to you. Right? So that's why they said I was involved with antisocial forces. It was a complete frame-up. I'm really sorry. Let me make this right. I'll talk to the manager tomorrow, explain the misunderstanding, and everything should work out." "No, I'm okay. Shouldn't be okay. You must be in trouble, right?" "Yes, it would be a lie to say I'm not troubled, but going back to work under such a manager would just be the same old story. I don't want to work under someone who doesn't trust his employees." "I see. So, you got something else lined up?" "No. Embarrassingly, I have absolutely nothing. Honestly, if I don't find something by the end of the month, I'm in a bad spot. But still, I'm thinking of standing firm as a man." "Good on you. In that case, how about I introduce you to a company run by an acquaintance of mine? They're not involved with the mafia or anything. I think my friend would like you." "No, that's okay. I wish I could cling to this offer. I want to jump at this opportunity, that's the truth. But should I really do that? After all, the other party is involved with the mafia. Even if they say they're not involved with the mafia, can I believe that 100%? Is that so? Well, if you ever find yourself in a bind, call the number on my card. I'm always here to help." The boss said that with a laugh, though. About a month later, I ended up needing his help. No matter how many interviews I went to, I couldn't land the job. Thus, I was thinking I'd have to settle for part-time work. I'm in the mood for a drink, but I've got no one to drink with. Would you mind keeping me company? Don't worry about the money. I'm asking for your company, after all. The boss made sure to put himself lower to not burden me. inviting me in such a way. Even though he was a member of the Mafia, I was surprised to find such a person existed and decided to accept if it was a bar. You really don't want much, right? That's not true. I'm offering to treat you. And here you are, picking a bar over a fancy restaurant. Well, I've never been to a fancy restaurant. It makes me restless. Honestly, I feel more at ease in a casual bar. I'll take this with thanks. And gulp down the beer. So, did you find a job? Actually, not yet. Being a high school graduated, it seems quite difficult. I've applied to quite a few companies, but no luck. That's fortunate. Sorry. Yeah, I was thinking, would you mind lending me a hand? For a moment, it felt like my heart skipped a beat. Being asked by the Mafia to lend a hand, I couldn't help but think of nothing good. He continued speaking. Man, how can I refuse after hearing his suggestion? It seemed he understood my reluctance, as his proposal was far from what I had imagined. Even though I'm with the Mafia, it doesn't mean we only do bad things. I just want to serve justice to the man who tormented my daughter. Justice? Yes, over the past month I've been investigating who exactly did such horrible things to my daughter. It turned out to be the manager of the company you worked for. He acts as the manager of that factory. The previous manager used to wear work clothes and get involved on the floor. But this guy wears expensive suits and never shows his face in the factory. He lives in a luxury residential area over 1 hour away by car, so that's why he always arrived late. Exactly. A classic case of executive timing. My daughter was practically his maid, and it seems she wasn't even fed properly, crying while eating a single bagel. Really? That bad? Yes, it's true. How dare he do that to my daughter? He muttered with frustration and finished his beer. That's why I absolutely want to revenge my daughter. But when you talk about revenge, of course, I'm not planning anything bad. I don't want to end up in jail and miss out on my time with my daughter for a scumbag like him. So we're going to do it legally. Legally? Yes, that's why I set up a company. What kind of company? It's in the same industry. But really, there's nothing to it. What I really want to do is take over that company. Take over? Yeah, take over. We'll take it over and kick the manager out. I've got all the dirt on him. He's got a considerable amount of personal debt, mostly from gambling and such. And now he's using the company's profits to cover his debts. Is he? Yes. That's why the employees' wages are so low. They dropped significantly after the previous manager passed away. That's true. Our salaries did drop sharply after the previous manager died. That's the scheme. You all were working for his benefit. So I want to kick him out of the company and make it a place where the employees can earn the wages they deserve. What will happen to that manager if he's kicked out? Well, I guess he'll end up in a debt hell. Plus, his wife seems to have married him only for his money. If she finds out he's no longer the president, she'll probably leave him. And socially, I'll make sure no company will hire him. You can do that. Hey, I'm the boss of the Blake, okay? Stuff like that is easy for me. I see. I asked for your help because you were also a victim of his actions. I thought maybe you'd want revenge too. Yes, I think all the employees would feel the same way once they know about this. They probably would. If this goes well, I plan to expand that factory even more. And I want to make you the manager. Me? Manager? Yes, I like you. Plus, you understand how that factory works, right? You're the perfect person for the job. But I'm just a high school graduated. That's impossible. What are you talking about? Back in the day, it wasn't uncommon for high school graduates to be presidents. If you lack education, you make up for it with experience and hard work. Saying that makes me feel like I could do it, right? If you become the manager, I can rest easy leaving it in your hands. The first task is to take over the factory. What do you think? Are you in? I understand. Count me in. Great. Tonight we'll toast to the future of our new company. So, unexpectedly, I found myself entangled in a plan to acquire the factory that had previously fired me. A month later, I had thoroughly examined the factory and its manager from every angle. We decided to inflict significant financial harm on the factory through our takeover strategy. Long time no see, Mr. Smith. Oh, have we met before? You wouldn't recall an employee with just a high school diploma. What? It's Jack Thompson. I was dismissed on a false accusation of Mafia connections. No, that was just the Blake calling to verify if I worked here. You used that as a pretext to fire me, a high school graduate, correct? Well, it wasn't exactly like that. Well, that's fine. As a result, I secured a position at my current company under favorable terms. I hold no grudges. Instead, I've come to you with a lucrative proposal, a good offer. Do you mean you want to make a deal with us? Yes, your products are of top-notch quality. That's something I learned from working here for years. That's why I'm offering a contract worth 10 million Dayat and 10 million yes. I'd like you to deliver that amount of goods within 2 weeks. Once the delivery is confirmed, we'll transfer the money. That would be appreciated. So will you accept this deal? Absolutely. I placed the contract on the table and asked him to sign. Without reading the details, he was thrilled at the mention of $10 million and signed it. Considering the manager's lack of administrative skills, I expected it, but it was still amusing to see how a company manager operates. After the contract was signed, he pushed the employees to work non-stop, urging them to work without rest. Indeed, the goods were produced. But when it was time for delivery, a problem arose. No shipping company would accept the job. Of course, that was because the Blake had intervened. In desperation, Smith himself went searching for any carrier. That's when a truck driven by a member of the Blake showed up. The goods were loaded and several trucks set off, but along the way, they encountered various issues such as vehicle malfunctions. Eventually, the goods didn't arrive by the deadline. I immediately contacted Smith and returned to the factory. The goods didn't arrive on time. Now, our company has suffered a huge loss. This is a breach of contract. No, we shipped everything properly. It's clearly stated in the contract, isn't it? If the goods don't arrive, you'll pay $10 million. That's absurd. I didn't know about such a clause. Mr. Smith, whether you're aware of it or not, it's clearly written here. Saying you didn't read it doesn't change anything. No way. My company doesn't have $10 million. Then there's no choice but to take over this factory. This factory? That's also written here. Even if the incident was caused by the carrier, your company is fully responsible. You signed it, didn't you? Wait, what have you done? Without the factory, it will be a disaster. It seems so. No one will pay off your personal debts anymore. How did you know that? That's not all. Your wife will probably leave you too. It seems she married you for your wealth. Hey, you knew everything and still made this contract. It's not just me who has a grudge against you. That's why this happened. Now the factory belongs to our company. Pack your things and leave. Unbelievable. With all my debt. He collapsed in despair, wailing. After being kicked out of the factory, he spoke to his wife, who had enjoyed a life of luxury until then. She decided to cut ties with the now penniless manager and slammed the divorce papers on the table. She mercilessly demanded compensation, burying him under an insurmountable amount of debt. This led to an incredible amount of debt, plunging him into a pit of suffering. When I reported the entire affair to the boss, he was pleased and praised me. Now he won't be employed by any company ever again. He'll truly understand what it means to betray people. Yes, I hope he struggles in the depths of hell. Right? Now you're the manager of that factory. You'll help the company grow for the employees. For you, right? No, that's not it. I didn't do this for myself. I did it for my daughter, for you, and for the employees who are working hard at that factory. So make sure those employees are happy. Got it? Yes, sir. Understood. Thus, I returned to the factory as its manager, and my former colleagues were delighted to have me back. Thank you all for staying. Now let's work hard to grow the factory and ensure everyone gets the salary they deserve. This factory belongs to all of us. I promised them during my inaugural speech. The colleagues cheered and welcomed me back.